So the first ever White House crypto summit is happening in just over a day, and we can see that it's filled with a bunch of notable speakers across the crypto space. We have Brian Armstrong, the CEO of Coinbase, in attendance, Robinhood, Kraken as well, Crypto.com, Ripple. There are even rumors of Vitalik, Anatoly, Paolo, the CEO of Tether, attending. It's going to be absolutely massive. But of course, the biggest discussion that has come out of this White House summit is what coins is Trump going to mention under the strategic crypto reserve? We know that on Sunday night, he came out and said that he's going to be doing a strategic reserve for Bitcoin, Ethereum. It's going to include Cardano, Ripple, Solana. But what other altcoins is it going to include? And could he come out and reveal these altcoins on Friday and cause a massive pump in the charts across those altcoins? That is what we're going to be discussing today. The altcoins that could be on Trump's list to be mentioned on Friday. And I'm also going to discuss what you can realistically expect on Friday. Is it going to be buy the rumor, sell the news event? Is it going to be a massive bullish event for crypto? And are there any altcoins that are flying under the radar? Spoiler alert, I think there are a few altcoins from a specific category which I'm seeing a lot of people ignore, but you probably shouldn't be heading into Friday. It's going to be a big monumental day for crypto, and let's dive into exactly what it means for these cryptocurrencies and what I'm doing heading into the event. If you enjoy content like this, which keeps you up to date with the crypto market, make sure to smash that subscribe button down below and click that post notification bell so you don't miss a single video. So what is the White House Crypto Summit? Let's firstly discuss what it is and the current details that we know. And then let's get into a little bit of speculation as to what we can expect on Friday. I'm also going to run you through a variety of altcoin charts, some of the altcoins that are likely to be mentioned that are in the no trade zone, altcoins that are likely to be mentioned that are in a trade zone, and then altcoins that are likely to be mentioned that are nice candidates for reversal plays based on their technical parameters. But to summarize what the summit is, last Friday, Trump's crypto czar, David Sachs, announced the first ever crypto summit. The event is set to take place this Friday and will be hosted by President Trump. It's essentially a roundtable event with a bunch of massive guests, as we discussed before. Also a bunch of unconfirmed guests who could be in attendance. Pretty much the who's who of crypto is going to be in attendance here. And they're all basically going to discuss some of the key crypto topics at hand. Regulation, a potential Bitcoin strategic reserve, but of course, the topic that's got everyone excited, a potential altcoin reserve for cryptocurrency as well. Here's a list of potential topics that they could discuss: DeFi, AML compliance, regulation, blockchain innovation, stablecoin policies, regulation for cryptocurrency. Now, yesterday, Howard Lutnick came out and even hinted that Trump would reveal his complete Bitcoin reserve plans at the summit, saying that a Bitcoin reserve strategy would be announced at the White House Crypto Summit on Friday, March 7th. So obviously everyone's been waiting for this big Bitcoin strategic reserve announcement. We could get more details on Friday, which could legitimize that. Now, in a minute here, I'll go through the likelihood of it actually being a strategic reserve, and will it be the same reserve as altcoins? I think they're going to be slightly different to what some people expect. We'll discuss that. But firstly, I want to talk about, of course, what Trump said on Sunday, which obviously announced a potential reserve for a variety of altcoins. So basically, Trump said that he would be including XRP, Solana, and Cardano alongside Bitcoin and Ethereum in a crypto strategic reserve to take the digital assets framework forward in crypto. Obviously, on Friday, the expectation is that we'll get a lot more details as to how this could practically look and some of the other altcoins which could potentially be included in this reserve. Obviously, we know Cardano and XRP and Bitcoin and Ethereum and Solana, but there could be more. And that is where some of the speculation comes in and some potential trading opportunities come in heading into Friday and beyond. But before we get into those altcoins, I firstly want to discuss the major distinction, which I think a lot of people are ignoring right now, and that is the difference between a sovereign wealth fund and a strategic reserve. So a lot of people are coming out and saying that, it's going to be this big crypto reserve with a bunch of alts and Bitcoin, and the US is just going to be passively bidding a bunch of altcoins. But there is a key distinction that I think we need to make here in terms of what Trump is practically going to do, which affects the way that these coins are held and affects how these coins are traded. So firstly, I'll go through the industry reactions, and then I'll go through the major distinction that we need to make between a sovereign wealth fund and a strategic reserve fund, because I'm seeing those two words fly around almost interchangeably online. So Coinbase CEO Brian Armstrong, when he heard about the crypto strategic reserve, said he's still forming an opinion on asset allocation, but my current thinking is just one, Bitcoin would probably be the best option, simplest and clear story as a successor to gold. And two, if folks want more variety, you could do a market cap weighted index of crypto assets to keep it unbiased, but probably number one is the easiest. Hunter Horsley, the CEO of Bitwise, said that he imagines a strategic reserve would just be Bitcoin. That makes the most sense to me. Many crypto assets have merits, but what we're talking about here isn't a US investment portfolio. We're talking about a reserve, and Bitcoin is an undisputed store of value for the digital age. Nick from Coin Bureau said the key question is, how will they fund and legislate this reserve? Well, I'll tell you how they're probably going to fund and legislate this reserve. I think it's going to be in two categories. I think we might see a Bitcoin strategic reserve. You have to remember the hallmark of a strategic reserve is that it's a stockpile that is essentially aiming to back or underpin the US dollar and should be used for economic expansion, but primarily stability for the economy. And if we believe that Bitcoin is a scarce asset, a form of hard money like gold, then it makes sense to stockpile Bitcoin as a strategic reserve asset. It doesn't really, in my opinion, make that much sense to stockpile Cardano or XRP or Solana, which are speculative assets, as a strategic reserve. In my opinion, it makes more sense to have an SWF or a sovereign wealth fund, which can be a pool of assets which they invest in essentially to aim for growth or to diversify national holdings. And the way that these two are practically managed are going to be very, very different. So obviously the purpose of a sovereign wealth fund could just be long-term value appreciation. The purpose of a strategic reserve, primarily for Bitcoin, would be to underpin the US economy, basically for either immediate use or stability of the economy. Just like we saw with the gold reserve back in, before 1971 when Nixon went off the gold standard. So I think, although, Trump is using these words interchangeably, like, a crypto strategic reserve or a crypto reserve for altcoins, how we're going to see it practically is probably the two being separated. So a Bitcoin strategic reserve, which makes the most sense, and then maybe a sovereign wealth fund for a bunch of other altcoins. We don't know exactly how it's going to look, though. We don't know the nitty-gritty. We'll likely get more clarity on Friday as to what the weighting of assets is going to be. We know that there are some assets, which I discussed before, that are guaranteed to be in that reserve, but we don't know if he's just going to do an index of the rest of the market or whether they're going to pick and choose specific altcoins. It's all up in the air right now, and all we can do is speculate, and today's video hopefully will help you make sense of it all. But until Friday, and potentially we won't even get all the answers on Friday because some of this needs to pass Congress, we won't fully know about how they're going to do the reserve. Obviously, you do need a legislative backing for a strategic reserve, but a sovereign wealth fund for buying altcoins. They could essentially find a way to spin one up. But I did want to make that distinction between an SWF and a strategic reserve because, the two are used interchangeably, but they are tangibly different. Now, going back to the potential wealth fund, what are some of the assets that could be added and included? I think this is where we've seen a lot of speculation, and it's where some interesting game theory comes in as it pertains to specific altcoins in the market. The first thing that you have to do is kind of put yourself in the mindset of Trump. Trump ultimately wants to support the US economy. So his goal is to have innovation for crypto coming back onshore. Obviously, a lot of it's being driven offshore. So it does make sense that they prioritize assets which are made in the USA, because in the future, this will likely incentivize, if they want to be included as part of this wealth fund, projects to either launch in the US or have some sort of presence in the US. So in my opinion, one of the contingencies that you should be looking at when it comes to alts that could be mentioned on Friday are the altcoins that are made in the US. And you can also take it even further and look at altcoins that have been mentioned by Trump historically, and also the projects which have one of their founders or more in attendance at the White House summit. And when you break it all down, you get a chart that looks like this, which I think is alpha, which basically has the made in the USA coins, the ETF application coins, the blockchain projects that are attending the White House, and the projects which have historically been mentioned by Trump all overlapped. And you can see that there are only actually two altcoins which overlap with all these four categories, and that's XRP and Cardano. The next best are Solana and AVAX, which overlap with another three categories, And then you have these altcoins in the middle here, which overlap with 2 categories. So what I'm going to do today is break down based on the categorization of these assets, as you can see in front of you, and the technicals, which ones may or may not have trading opportunities. And then at the end of the video, I'm going to go through how I'm playing it overall as to whether I think it could be buy the rumor, sell the news, or whether I think there'll be tangible opportunities here. Needless to say, if there is a wealth fund with altcoins, I think all of the assets in front of you are a strong chance to be included. But I think the ones that have the most overlap are the strongest potential bets. And some of these are XRP, Cardano, AVAX, Solana, HBAR, Trump, BONK, Link, as you can see in front of you. I think some of the made in the USA coins that World Liberty Finance has mentioned, like ONDO, make a lot of sense. Uniswap, they recently had their, case dropped by the SEC. There's a little bit of nuance that you have to add, but these are the types of projects that I think you could see appearing on Friday and beyond as we head into the creation of this wealth fund. You can see here a list of coins that are made in the USA. So these are some of the biggest cryptocurrencies by market cap that are either made or are based in the USA. And a lot of these do overlap in multiple categories. So they might also have an ETF like, DOT, Doge, BONK, at least a filing, not obviously a guaranteed ETF. Or they may also be in attendance at the White House. As you can see, we have a category of altcoins here, which are in attendance and also are made in the USA. But what I want to do now is actually go through a lot of them in terms of their technicals, and then at the end, I'll summarize my overall plan. There are really 3 categories in terms of trade setups at the moment for a lot of these coins. There are no trade coins, there are support play coins, and then there are reversal play coins. So in terms of coins from this list that are in a no trade zone, I actually think XRP is in a no trade zone. Now, there is the money noodle on the 3-day and the weekly, of course, which it's been adhering to. But unless you got an entry a couple of days ago in that zone at range lows, then I don't think buying it mid-range into resistance is a shrewd play, hence why I'm saying it's in a no trade zone. Cardano is very similar. It's actually been rejected off its range high. So for me, unless once again you're buying at the money noodle or this week low, which I actually pointed out a couple of days ago, then I probably wouldn't be buying Cardano now. ONDO as well, if you look at the 3-day, it's respected the money noodle historically, and it's actually having a bearish retest right now. So that's also in a no trade zone. If we go back to this image here, you can see that ONDO was mentioned as a made in the USA coin. Cardano and XRP are in the middle, but for me, both of them are in no trade zones. Personally, the risk reward there just doesn't look great. And then there are some others which I haven't mentioned, which are maybe slightly better setups. In terms of Solana, which has obviously also been confirmed by Trump, this is also for me in a no trade zone because I really like the support buys on the weekly time frame, which is around $120. I did get an entry the other day, as I discussed last week, at around $127, played the bounce and actually sold into resistance here because we actually have a bearish flip of momentum on this trending indicator. So for me, Solana doesn't technically look that strong. If you go to the 4-hourly, there is a slight divergence, but there's a lot of overhead resistance at 175 and again at 200, which also make it just not the best risk-reward trade for me. Now, there are trades from this list, which are much better risk reward. Let's go through a few of them. So we have AVAX, which overlaps with an ETF application made in the USA, attending the White House, or at least speculated to be attending the White House. It isn't mentioned by Trump, but it fills 3 of the 4 categories. And it's also at an interesting level. So if you look at the weekly chart, AVAX is actually at a support level where it's reacted to multiple times. Obviously, when it comes to determining supports and resistances in crypto, the best thing to do is look at how has price responded or reacted. Has it reacted significantly to that zone historically? And we know that AVAX has multiple retests back in August last year, multiple retests this year, and also acted as a historical resistance level for pretty much the entire bear market before it broke through and created a new range. So on the weekly, AVAX actually looks okay because look, even if you bought here, right, or you bought on Friday, you do have invalidation below at around $18. So of course, it's maybe not the best leverage trade because you're not getting a tight enough entry. But in terms of a spot buy on the weekly, there is invalidation here on a close below this level. So for me, in terms of altcoins that overlap with these categories, technically AVAX I think is one of the best setups. Going through some other support plays, Aptos has a similar setup to AVAX. If you look at the list, it's also listed here. It overlaps with 2 of the categories, White House attendance plus made in the USA. And if you look at Aptos, it's very similar to AVAX. You have this prior low at 430, which could be invalidation for a trade. Now, the problem is weekly high time frame support trades have quite a wide stop gap. So the difference between the current price and where you get stopped are quite big, in some cases 17 to 25%. So it doesn't make it a great trade for leverage traders, but if you're trading on spot, then there are more opportunities. But what I would say is with any of these coins, you want to get an entry as close as possible to their support level. So in the case of AVAX, in the case of Aptos, you'd probably want it closer to 550 than 620 because, okay, it could potentially pump into the event, but it's now approaching resistance, which is 20% overhead, and then you've got invalidation of around 32%. So it's kind of in this weird zone where the risk reward isn't great on the trade. So technically, what I like to do when I enter a trade is I look at high time frame support on the weekly, for example, or the 3-day, and then what I'll do is I'll move down the time frames to get my exact entry. So this is pretty much how you enter trades, in my opinion. You want to start on a higher time frame, then move down to get your exact entry. And in terms of execution, there's really two plays for a coin like Aptos, and this technical strategy can be implemented on pretty much any coin. It's either a retest of this zone here at 530 to 550, you can get an entry there, or you could flip the money noodle and look for a potential strength reclaim, because we know historically, at least over the last 6 months, it's actually reacted a lot to this level. Bearish retest, multiple rejections off this level. So we know it's actually respecting this level. So a flip of this zone, and if you clear the previous high, that could be a nice base for a potential move to the upside targeting range high. So I would look at a setup like this where you have a flip, you come back down, you get your entry, you have your stop below the money noodle, and then you can play a potential range high retest. So two scenarios, either you want to buy support down here or buy the bullish trend reversal to the upside. So instead of just buying in here, because technically now you're in the middle of that zone. Getting a little bit technical in terms of trade execution, it's something we teach in the Mars High Club with our other trading analysts, but thought it might be valuable to some of you that are actually trading a lot of these coins. Right now, we're in an environment for crypto where just like buying spot and holding is a little bit riskier just due to the fact that momentum is down. So I'm naturally paying a lot more attention to the technicals at the moment and trying to refine my entries on a lot of coins. Another coin that also fits this bill of being a support play on the 3-day is BONK. If you do want to go back and look at this image, BONK fits a couple of these categories. It has an ETF application and it's also made in the USA. Of course, it's a major proxy for Solana as well. If there was one Solana meme coin to be potentially included in a reserve, it's probably going to be BONK. However, it is in a downtrend, so similar to Aptos, you can probably look at buying this 3-day/weekly support level at the 0.00001 level. This is roughly from the current zone 24% down. So I actually would look, if we do see a buy the rumor, sell the news effect, at buying this after a wick to the downside. If that doesn't happen, because it's probably not going to dip pre-Friday, the dip would likely happen post-Friday, you can play it very similarly to the other setups that I was discussing before. On Aptos, for example, you can look for a reclaim of strength. In terms of how it's reacting to the money noodle, there is a little bit of confluence here on the 4-day. On the daily chart as well, there is even more confluence. So with trending indicators, you want to go down to the time frame where they react the best. I'd say the daily probably looks a little bit better here. So you can look for a setup like this, one of these reclaim flip setups where you get a flip of the horizontal resistance as well as the trending indicator, then you could get in. So no need to rush a lot of these setups. You can actually wait for a lot of these coins to start gaining momentum, even if they're announced on Friday, right? And then just hop into the trade based on technical validation instead of trying to preempt the trade prior to Friday when pretty much anything could happen and it could be buy the rumor, sell the news. At the end of today's video, I'll get into what I think the logical outcome is there. And then there are a bunch of reversal plays. So as you can tell by now, I'm trading all of these very technically. I'm looking at all of these. I have a trading view watch list with the main ones, but I'm trading them very technically. I'm not just buying spot, hoping for good news on Friday. I think they're good because there's volume, right, coming into these coins versus on-chain right now, but I'll only trade them based on their technicals. Now, Trump obviously overlaps with a lot of these categories, but this is also a potential reclaim trend reversal play. Obviously, it's been down only, so I would wait for a flip of the $14 zone. If it can get above this level and hold, I think this could be a nice place to potentially look at longing, but I think buying here into resistance probably isn't the wisest thing to do a day away from the event. Move is also an interesting play because if you want to have a look at the chart here, you see Move overlaps with a couple of these categories, also made in the USA, and importantly, World Liberty Finance has been adding it. So they recently just sent 25 million USDC to a separate contract to buy $10 million of ETH, $10 million of wrapped Bitcoin, and $1.5 million of Move. So Trump's project essentially is buying Move, which I think makes it a coin that is going to be heavily traded around this event. And looking from a technical perspective, it's now coming up to a major resistance, which is the money noodle on the daily, as well as this horizontal level. We could potentially see a flip here, and that would be validation for me to trade it. Similarly to Trump, it hasn't quite got to that level yet, but we are approaching it right now. And because World Liberty's been so involved with Move, this is one of the coins that we could see volatility around. And then one of the last ones I wanted to use as an example because it also fit this bill of a potential reclaim play is SUI, clearly facing some major resistance right now, also has this horizontal level that is acting as resistance, but this is a coin which also has obeyed the money noodle quite well. You see it's had multiple retests here, obeyed it all on the way up, and then ever since it had that bearish breakdown, it's also been acting as major resistance on the way down here, and here. So I love coins that respect their trending indicators because you can use those indicators in the future as confluence to trade off, and so it'll probably come down like this. What you want to wait for is essentially this low to be confirmed, which would be marked by a flip of the horizontal and a clearance of this trending indicator, which is the money noodle, and then potentially a retest back down into that pocket could give you that entry zone. So that's what I'm looking at on SUI. Once again, being patient and waiting for a reclaim rather than trying to preempt it into Friday. Maybe it's not the news you wanted to hear in this video, like I'm buying all of these coins now to make a bunch of money on Friday. But the truth is, a lot of these I'm taking acknowledgement of because they are clearly coins with a lot of attention right now, a lot of mindshare and a lot of trading volume, but I'll only trade them based on the technicals because that is the current market that we are in, either very low leverage or spot, because I also don't want to be gambling in a highly volatile market, which has seen Bitcoin go from 95K back to 78, back to 92, back to 82, and now back to 90. Like, it's a crazy volatile market. It's very news driven. You want to stay away from lots of leverage and either keep minimal leverage or trade spot if possible, because then you won't get liquidated. Even if you're wrong, you can just have a stop loss and you can exit the trade without having to take huge losses or getting liquidated. Now, what I want to do, now that you have an idea of some of the setups I'm looking at, is read out Fabian's market update from the Mars High Club this morning. He has a fantastic market commentary channel where every day or every other day he gives an update on the market and gives you his opinion based on macroeconomics. If you don't know, Fabian actually kind of grew to prominence or rose to prominence on Twitter through his macro takes, and that's actually how I found him. So it's been really nice to have his macro guidance in a market which is so macro driven at the moment. I really respect his opinions and generally find that they align pretty well with my thoughts. And in this case, that's true. That's why I'll read it out today. And I basically echo the same sentiment. So he says, good morning. TradFi markets had a good close yesterday. Both the S&P and NASDAQ held well above last week's lows, as well as multi-month range lows that they briefly deviated below. VIX, so the volatility index, is still above 20, but cooling off from its peak. Yields are slightly up, which is actually good given that they were falling on growth concerns. So it signals that it was locally overdone and markets are mean reverting now. So we've basically seen a lot of the relentless selling and market manipulation at least pause for a few days, and we've had a slight bit of continuation on alts heading into the Friday Crypto Summit. And finally, the dollar has dropped like a rock, which is positive for global liquidity and could help counterbalance the growth concerns in the short term. I still expect the relief in markets to continue as peak fear around tariffs seems to be baked in for now. Tomorrow will be an important day with 3 key events to look out for: employment report, power speaking, and of course the White House Crypto Summit. So a very big day tomorrow for crypto. Fabian says, I don't have a strong opinion on the first two, and I think they are less likely to be meaningful events. But touching on the White House Crypto Summit, I'd assume that the long side of crypto traders speculating on it will be saturated by the end of today, if not already. I also agree with this. Then, whether the summit is a sell the news event or not will depend on if the announcements live up to the hype. Markets want confirmation that A, the crypto reserve is being pushed forward on a relevant time frame, and B, that the government plans to make meaningful purchases of the included assets. Typically, these events do not live up to the hype, as the bar is set high, with markets already pricing in a 65% chance of a Bitcoin strategic reserve this year. That's according to Polymarket, I think. And insiders likely already know the outcome of the event. So the base case is usually that it's a sell the news event, and that is also the base case that I'm operating off and the one that I spoke about earlier in the week, at least initially. Recall that both Trump's inauguration and David Sachs' presser played out this way. However, there's always a chance that we get a positive surprise, and we'll assess that when it comes. Also, regardless of whether we sell the news, I believe Bitcoin is locally bottomed, so dips could be for buying, but then TBD. So that pretty much aligns with a lot of my trade setups, because many of my setups, especially these reversal plays, do rely on positive news from the summit. And when that positive news comes in, that will be the catalyst for a flip of a lot of the resistance levels that we currently find ourselves in. Conversely, a lot of the key weekly levels that we're looking at on coins like AVAX, APT, and BONK, there's a little bit of a gap here, around 15 to 20% in most cases, that you would probably see those levels tested in the event that it is a sell the news event, and then these opportunities open up. So in a way, you can play it either way. If it is a sell the news event, you can get in at these major support levels and have a pretty clear invalidation below. If it's not, and we get a bullish surprise, you'll have opportunities to get in on these reclaims, and there'll be some easy money on the table, and that should give the markets enough fuel for at least 1 to 2 weeks to actually play out a lot of these trades. You don't need to preemptively try and guess what's going to happen on Friday in order to make money. The rule of thumb around these events is if you're unsure, then assume it's sell the news, and if not, cool. Trading opportunities will open up as a result of that. So that's kind of my mental framework at the moment. Assume it's sell the news, and if it's not, trading opportunities will open up, some of the setups that we discussed today that give us the ability to make money. So that's pretty much how I'm playing the crypto summit. Maybe not like a crazy bullish video like some other YouTubers are making, but just wanted to give you a level-headed take on what I actually think will happen on Friday. Obviously, a pivotal day for crypto. Any good news would be warmly welcomed, and hopefully it does mark as a turning point for the market, but that isn't how I'm necessarily trading, because I'm trying to maintain a level head and treat it like some of the other events have played out, like the Trump inauguration and the David Sachs presser. So I hope it isn't by the rumor sell the news for the sake of the market, but that's kind of how I'm operating at the moment. And some of these trading opportunities will open up either way. So hopefully in today's video, that gives you a little bit of preparation. And what I recommend doing as a bit of homework is go into TradingView, get this chart open, and start, where's the chart? Let me find it here. This one. Get the chart open and start adding a lot of these coins to your watch list. I was pretty selective because I also want to look at stuff which has reacted well in terms of price. Hence why, AVAX, APT, BONK, Move, ONDO, Solana, Sui, these are the ones that I've added because they have been responsive. Near as well. These are the kind of assets, AVAX, that are on my watch list, and basically just make your own. Map out the key levels. You can use some that I mentioned today. If you're in the Mars High Club Discord, we'll be trading them all throughout the week. We're very active with the setups, especially Paradise, who's been trading a lot of these on the lower time frames. He's going to keep you updated with a lot of these trades as the week progresses. So we'll see you in there if you are in the Discord. But even if you're not, you can mark out these levels just based on classic support, resistance, get a trending indicator. If you don't have access to the Mars High Club Money Noodle, you can use, let's say, the 100 or 200 MA. Does a similar job, maybe not as refined to our strategy, but we'll do a similar job in giving you an idea for momentum as long as you're on the higher time frames. If you go down to the lower time frames, it starts to lose its efficacy unless it's proven to actually respect that level. So cool. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'll see you in the next one. I'll keep you updated with the results of what actually happens during the summit. I'll either go live or do a video straight after. So see you in the next one. Hope you have a nice rest of your day. Peace out.